Servus Männer, it's Red Pill Germany again. Responsibility is women's kryptonite. That was my takeaway lesson, at least, when I read the newspaper this morning. Reality is a little bit faster, it unfolds faster than I can even react to it on social media, but I will try to summarize it for you. In my last video, I told you that Andrea Nahles plans to have another vote for the lead of the faction of the Social Democratic Party of Germany in the Bundestag. The idea behind that is that she lost authority right now because of the disastrous election results in the EU Parliament elections and in Bremen, and she tries to get back the trust of the party. So this is an opportunity for critics of her to put their heads in the ring and to compete against her in the new election for the leader of the faction. Now, I already told you that no people have come forth so far, and that is probably not a good sign because nobody wants to do her job, because she wrecked the party just within 1 year to such a degree that there is probably some more negative news ahead that people don't want to take the blame for. Now, I heard this morning that she has already declared that she will resign not only in her leadership of the faction in parliament, but also as a member of parliament and also as a chairman of the SPD. So it sounds like as if she wants to completely end her political career for good at the peak of her power. Now, I don't know what happened behind closed doors or what evil old man said a mean thing to her, but apparently she's in no mood of fixing the mess that she created in the first place. Now, I haven't made a dedicated video for her yet because I didn't think she's important enough, but now that this has happened, I want to tell you a little bit about her at least. Then I want to tell you how it could go on in Germany for her party. Then I will follow up with my usual generalizations and rants, and in the end there is a little bit of unintentional comedy at the end from Andrea Nahles. So she was born in 1970 in a middle class or working class family. She finished her high school and later she studied, I think you could call it German literature and politics. Now, the thesis that she graduated with was about junk romance novels. So that should already tell us a little something about her character or her intelligence. Then later she was supposed to get her PhD, but she never finished that. In 2005, she entered as a member of the German parliament into the Reichstagsgebäude. Now, she claims to be Catholic, but I don't really know. She is a single mother and divorced, so how Catholic can you be? But I think they have so many atheists and Protestants in that party. In order to get the Catholic vote, somebody had to say, yeah, I'm Catholic, I guess. So officially she is Catholic, yeah. She pays church tax to the Catholic Church, yes. I wouldn't call her a Catholic though. In her Wikipedia article, you actually don't find anything about work. So there is studies and there is political work. So to our big surprise, I have to acknowledge that she never worked in the private sector, never did honest work, as so many others in German politics. Now, of course, she paid lip service to this and that cause over the course of her political career, but there was really only one topic and one field of politics that she consecutively and continuously worked on, and that was networking with other women and women questions. That means, how can we get more women into certain positions of power? Gender quotas, for example, are her biggest project. So together with many other German female politicians, she wanted to pass a law that would force the German Bundestag, our federal parliament, to be 50% male and female members of parliament. That means our constitution, our democratic process would be completely invalidated, and the voters, the citizens, would no longer be able to determine who is in parliament for their district with their vote. There are many questionable interviews and articles with her where she makes it known that she is convinced that women are just overall better. So she says, if something was easy, then you could have a man do it. But if something is hard to do, then you need a woman to get the job done. Yeah, we all see how that played out in reality. So she said also that if you want a humane society, then you must overcome male society. Of course, men are not humane and we are vicious and evil creatures. It is also interesting that she built her power, it is said, by building networks. Of course, she doesn't have any special skills and no knowledge, so she needs a lot of networking, and especially from her days from the youth organizations of the young socialists of Germany, she actually built a network with certain men, and I don't know how she did that, but apparently she had this network of young men that helped her to rise through the ranks later. And then she was also criticized by other women for taking one of those men then with her as a close confidant. Which just goes to show again how actually, I don't want to say toxic, but how unpractical feminism is when you actually build trust with a confidant and when you want to take that person with you to a new office, a new position of power, and then some women criticizes him. Now that actually shows an example of how feminism and gender preference can actually be quite bad for a woman who wants to rise up, but I guess we all know that. Now there are a lot of candidates and a lot of people who can fill her position now, of course. The SPD is now full of strong, powerful and well-qualified women, of course. There is, for example, Manuela Schwesig, who thinks that women are just smarter than men. Then, in order to prove that point almost, there is the wonderful Malu Dreyer, the governor of Rheinland-Pfalz, who cannot even write a simple German letter. In 6 sentences, she managed to make 8 mistakes that are really, really embarrassing. It was a letter to Angela Merkel that was written in a way that you have to assume that she was Jean-Claude Juncker or Nancy Pelosi levels of drunk, and nobody seemed to double check the letter before they send it to the German Chancellor. If you think that this is just a little affair and that you cannot draw conclusions about her based on this little embarrassing letter, then I have to tell you also that she practices a very selective form of feminism. So when German men, for example, are a little loud in parliament or when they just don't want to listen to women, then this is of course horrible. But if, let's say, people with a very, very colorful appearance that come from faraway countries under mysterious, undocumented circumstances, when they just so happen to end the life of a German young lady, then of course you cannot talk about it. And the women who want to talk about these issues, they are the real enemy of Germany. That is her opinion. So she's completely anti-European, anti-German, and she only is for women as long as they are for the replacement of the European people. And as long as they don't make such a fuss about being killed every now and then. But this is not everything. There is more. There is the wonderful Katharina Barley, for example, who blames men for Brexit. So you see, we don't really have to worry about the Social Democratic Party of Germany. They have more than enough people that are more than capable to fill this enormous gap that Andrea Nahles left. So let me point my attention now to some more general points. I think this should be a warning example for everyone, not only in political parties, also in the industry, in private clubs. Look at this example and pay close attention. Now, you have a group of women who distinguish themselves by nothing else than constant complaints of how they're not taken serious and how they cannot really get ahead because all these evil men are blocking their way. Now, when they actually at a very young age have a lot of power, several offices in an important position in Germany, they manage to sink the ship in record time and then just leave. They're really good at building networks and delegating jobs and also avoiding responsibility, but when they're at the front, then they just can't handle the pressure. Despite of what they say, they actually don't want it. They want, for example, to be in parliament, yes, but they don't want to be at the head of their faction, because then they would have to take the blame. So they want to have the nice high income jobs, but they don't want the responsibility. They don't want the leadership. This is why women prefer actually to vote men into leadership positions, because then they're in the second row, so to speak. They also hold a lot of the power, but the blame is taken then by the man who is at the top. And maybe if they drink their own Kool-Aid and believe their own BS, then they actually assume a position of leadership that is readily given to them by all the men, because they want that, right? They don't want to stand in the way of a powerful, capable woman. But then when they notice, oh, I actually have to deliver, then they actually just leave, and all of a sudden they don't feel well. And now it's time that I think about myself. But in the end, you can say it is really the fault of German men that they actually grew up to believe that women could actually do those jobs. And some of the women do actually. I am not generally talking about women. I'm talking about those women who constantly bring up quotas and their existence as a woman as a valid point. If they just do their job, they will get ahead just like men do. If they are productive and smart and hardworking enough and intelligent enough, then there is no problem, and we know many of these women. A very unlikely example, also very nice comparison because it's also the field of politics, is Margaret Thatcher and also Angela Merkel. You can say about Angela Merkel what you want. She didn't get ahead using feminist networks. She actually, when asked about feminism, she's always dancing around the question, because of course Angela Merkel cannot really say, I hate feminism, feminism is stupid. That would cost her all the votes of the feminists who still kind of are proud of the fact that Germany has a female chancellor. But Angela Merkel is actually not a very big feminist, and she doesn't have any connections to these big feminist networks. And she also didn't use this woman card in order to get ahead and to become chancellor. I actually made a series about her life and how she managed to get where she is and how she managed to stay in power. So you can watch all those videos if you want to, if you're interested in Angela Merkel a little more. But she is an example, and Thatcher I think also, of how you can actually get to the top, how you can make it in a quote-unquote man's world without having to play the woman card constantly. And surprise, surprise, those were the politicians who actually accomplished something, good or bad. I think you all know what I think about Angela Merkel's work that she did in Germany, but at least they did what they planned to do. And their plan was not only to get more women in positions of power, but to actually do something. So women can of course do that too, but there are just so many that are so tempted to play the woman card constantly and to get ahead without having to prove themselves. And then once they're at the top, of course, you can imagine it doesn't really work out. That's why responsibility is really women's kryptonite. They want to avoid it generally at all cost. They generally prefer the position as second in command, as a lieutenant, so that they don't have to take all the vicious blame that, of course, especially in politics or in the business world, you sometimes get. It is of course not a nice job. So Helmut Kohl, for example, said once, if you want to be at the top of the church tower, if you want to be the weathercock, so to speak, then you have to accept that the wind is blowing straight into your face. That was a little metaphor that he used. So if you want to be at the top, you have to make your peace with the fact, you have to accept that a hard wind is blowing into your face, and you cannot complain about that. Of course, he also plowed through a crowd at a public appearance, and he wanted to catch and beat up a guy who had just thrown an egg at him. That was also Helmut Kohl. So everyone in all walks of life should be very, very much afraid and careful about these network building professional women. If they can do the job, if they have what it takes, then it's fine. But if all they do is networking and bringing up women's questions and we need more women, me, all the time, then that is a clear red flag that this person is not good for your organization, and your organization or your group will end up like the SPD. It will crash and burn, and all the women are gone, and they do not want to fix the problem, they will not want to repair the damage, but they will actually just drop it and leave, and then you are left to pick up the pieces. Which is ironically exactly what they said about men. They said that women can only get into power ever when men screw up, so women are then allowed to pick up the pieces. Yeah, well, I think the opposite has happened. They have made it worse, and now they're leaving. So I want to conclude this with a little bit of uncommented live footage from Andrea Nahles. Public speaking skills and charisma and just making a good impression at public events is very important for politics, but she must have had some other skills. She must have had another way to further her career. Just look at this. Servus, Kameraden.
Wunderschönen guten Tag, Bremen. Schönen Gruß nach Bremerhaven, lieber Uwe. Ich sage, es ist schön, hier zu sein. Es ist toll, diesen vollen Platz hier zu sehen. Es ist schön, Henning und Klaus und Jens hier zu sehen. Aber lieber Carsten, eins kann ich jetzt hier nicht machen. Es geht einfach nicht. Ich kann jetzt nicht sagen, ich liebe Bremen. Ja, ich kann das ja nicht. Ich liebe ja die Eifel. Aber, was ich überall in Deutschland liebe, ist, wenn ich irgendwo hinkomme und ich merke, hier wird gut regiert. Und ich sage euch, Bremen wird gut regiert. Und deswegen liebt ich bin ein bisschen Bremen, also ich liebe auf jeden Fall Carsten. Ich hoffe, seine Frau hat nichts dagegen. Ich bin darüber hinaus jetzt erinnert worden durch die ganzen Beiträge der Kollegen von der Regierungsfraktion an das Gute-Nacht-Lied, was ich meiner Tochter jetzt in den letzten Wochen häufig gesungen habe. Da da di da 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 da. Ich mach mir die Welt wie sie mir gefällt. Ja, so ist es doch. Alles soll so bleiben, wie es ist. Alles ist wunderbar und gut. Das ist ein anderes Land offensichtlich.
Servus, Kameraden.